Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I'm going to try something a little bit new here. I've been thinking about doing this for a while, but since I'm shooting like 2 videos a day now's the perfect time to do this, which is I'm going to start doing some book reviews on books as I finish reading them. I'm not going to do any like super in-depth type of review, but as I finish reading a book, if I remember, I'm going to try to do a video here. If you like this, if you'd like to see book reviews like this, obviously let me know, thumbs up, comment, and tell me, and I'll keep doing them. If no one cares, I'll probably stop. But anyway, so a couple things. First of all, so there'll definitely be a playlist created for these book reviews, assuming that I keep doing them, so you'll be able to check those out. Also, you can check out some of the videos. I did do a top 10 books that I recommend video, and I also did another video on 12 more books that I recommend. Those are kind of my top choices of books, so you can check those out. But today, for the first review, I'm going to do a little bit of a strange book here, or at least some people are going to think this is strange. This is quite a popular book. And I'm actually holding a copy of the book, which is weird for me because normally I read books on a Kindle, but I got this book from the Pacific Beach Library. They have these like ridiculous sales. I think I got it for $1.50 off, so it's like 50 cents. Kind of crazy, and they have good books. Like there's several books that are on my list. I've got a couple of them that I picked up there. So anyway, this book is by Eckhart Tolle. It's called A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Let's see if we can maybe zoom in on there. We'll see. Anyway, so yeah, A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Eckhart Tolle, I read his previous book called The Power of Now. I thought it was a pretty good book. I didn't totally agree with all the concepts in there at the time. I'm more in agreement with his way of thinking now, strangely enough. This is definitely a strange book. This is a book that you may not be ready for. So not everyone is going to like this book. It was on Oprah's book club, which is kind of funny because I used to make fun of that, but now I find a lot of books on there to be actually really good, and Oprah's a pretty smart person. So this guy, let me tell you a little bit about Eckhart Tolle, first of all. So he's kind of this spiritual teacher. He basically, had some events in his life, and then went on this journey and came back and sort of come to these realizations in life and started writing a book. He wrote The Power of Now. I think he told his stories he was broke and he bought a lottery ticket and won $1,000, which allowed him to finish writing the book. That's how weird the story. But then it became like a super bestseller book, and I think it's changed a lot of people's lives. So, and The Power of Now is really a spiritual type of book. It really, I want to say that it's sort of a mix between sort of a transcendentalist, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry Thoreau, thinking kind of maybe Zen Buddhism, Hindu, sort of this whole idea of there being one conscious to the universe, one consciousness, and that we're all part of this. So I've been coming more and more around to this way of thinking. I'm not saying that I fully subscribe to it, but I think there's some merit to it. I think it's worth investigating. This is something that I would not have said at all about 5 years ago, and I would have thought I needed to be locked up and put in the loony bin. The only reason why I'm saying that, and why I'm prefacing that before I give you the review of this book, is because I want you to understand that if you're very much right now like, John, what the hell are you talking about? That's exactly where I came from. And so for me to come from there to here, it says something, right? It gives a little bit more credibility to what I'm saying. I wasn't just some woo-woo out there person. But I still understand if you have reservations. Heck, I still have reservations. I don't know exactly where this stands, but I am starting to discover, right? And you're seeing as you're watching these videos, that there are more connected things that are pointing sort of in this direction, the non-traditional direction, that are very difficult to explain, because I'm seeing this pop up in a lot of different places. So with that said, let's talk about this book specifically. So A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Essentially the book is basically saying this. It's basically saying that we are coming into a new level of consciousness as human beings of the earth. Basically, more people are, quote, awakening, right? And it's funny because I use this phrase, that's used in this book, because I talked, in fact, I gave a couple of talks lately, and I've been saying, and I probably said in some videos that the universe just like calls you to awaken at some point, and that's, you know, when your life starts to change. And that's what he talks about in this book. He's basically like, look, this book might be for you. If you don't understand any of this, it doesn't make any sense. It's just not your time. But, you know, and certain people are awakening into this higher level of consciousness. Again, sounds really weird, but bear with me here. I'm pretty analytical and a rational person. So if I'm saying this, there's something to be gained from this, whether you believe it 100% or not. Again, I'm not 100%. Again, I'm caveating this like crazy because I know that your skeptic alarm is going off, because heck, that's what would happen to me. So anyway, essentially, he's basically saying that we're at this point in history where the human consciousness is essentially flowering, and people are becoming more awakened, quote, enlightened, if you will, and they are becoming more of the observers, not thinking, but being in the present moment. And his first book is, about the power of now. So he's talking about this new consciousness that's arising, right? And he's talking about how it's rapidly accelerating, and there are certain people that had already like awakened this, or had started this process, and it's becoming more and more universal. And this is the destiny. And he kind of alludes to this point, which is basically this idea that there's one consciousness in the universe, and that we're manifesting everything in life, everything in the universe is all one manifestation of this one consciousness. And this kind of the deep point of this book is this idea that the ego is like where we're at right now. That's the current state of humanity. And the ego is essentially, it's false, it's fake. It doesn't really exist. You and I don't really exist as separate entities. Instead, we are, kidding ourselves when we believe that we're something separate than the source, than the single consciousness, God, being, presence, right? So again, this is, I'm reporting to you. You can take it how you want, but it's something to explore here. There's definitely something here. I'm not 100% sure, like I said, but pretty interesting stuff. So, he talks about a lot of ideas of the ego, and what is the ego, and what is the core of the ego. What are the problems that the ego causes, and how you can detect if you're living in the ego. And he uses this concept of, I think he calls it pain bodies, which he's talked about in his other book, but it's pretty interesting. He shows how the ego shows up in your life, essentially how you can start to get away from the ego. And he goes into pain bodies, and then he talks about breaking free, like how to get free from the pain bodies, which are the problems, the things that essentially cause problems in your life, which is ego attachment, attaching to things, and then figuring out who you truly are, what your purpose is, right? The call, or the subtitle of this book is Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Essentially, it says that your life's purpose is basically to rise to a higher level of consciousness, which is really interesting, because I was just talking about this to someone, and I was just talking about this idea. I was asked this question of, what do you think that, like, how do you find your purpose in life? How did you find your purpose? And I came up, before I read this book, with the answer that I think everyone's life purpose is to raise their level of consciousness. And so when he said that in this book, I was like, wow, that's interesting, because I don't think that anything in life is a coincidence. And I just read this in this book after I just said that, and that's basically what he says. So he talks about this idea of basically, that your purpose, your internal purpose, is to raise your consciousness, and you have external purposes that change all the time, which is pretty interesting. Like, that's your goals, that's your aspirations in life. But when they're ego-centered, you got problems, right? And then he talks a little bit about, your inner space, kind of becoming more aware, right, of who you are. Basically, the idea is that you are the observer, not the thinker, right? We associate ourselves, we say I am, and that's the thinking part of our brain. But what we actually are is the entity, the consciousness, the one in the whole that's observing the thinker. So it's an interesting concept, and I've seen it in multiple places, but that's essentially how to be in the present moment, it's awareness, right? And this is what I talk about to you guys all the time, is I talk about awareness, right? Seeing reality as it is, becoming aware. If you're watching these videos, this is all about, like, becoming aware of yourself, of your actions, viewing yourself as if someone else looks at you, and to be able to see what reality truly is, because that's how you change, that's how you can accomplish things. So I think there's some real value in this. Again, whether or not you believe the kind of woo-woo aspect of this or not, which, you know, I'm not judging either way, but anyway, so then he goes into the idea of the new earth, and basically that there's like three modalities of awakened doing: acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. And essentially that basically says, like, look, if you're not going to do something from one of these places, acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm, don't do it, because that's what being awakened, like, that's what you do, that's what consciousness is bringing about. Those are the ways that it's done. If it's something that you don't want to do, and you can't accept it, and you can't enjoy it, and you're not enthusiastic about it, then you shouldn't be doing it, because you're causing pain and suffering to yourself and the rest of the world, which I have to agree with, right? It seems pretty true here. So anyway, I think it's a pretty good book. Again, it's not based anywhere in science. It's not based anywhere in observation. I mean, it's really just it's one of those kind of spiritual wisdom type of philosophy type of books. You know, obviously I like philosophy, but it's really interesting. There's some connections. There's a reason why I read this book at this particular time in my life. I do believe that. I don't believe in coincidences. And it echoed a lot of things. It's always interesting to me, right, when I read a book and it echoes things that conclusions I've sort of come to on my own. And some of you have had this experience with my videos. I know, because you've commented, is you'll be like, oh, that's interesting. John just said something that I never heard anyone else say before, but I was thinking about on my own and came to that conclusion. That's not a coincidence, right? I don't think it's a coincidence. I think there's a reason for that. I think everything in this world and this universe happens for a reason. I know that sounds a little bit weird to some of you, but anyway, that's all. I'm not going to get into more details than that. Anyway, I think you should read the book. I would recommend reading his Power of Now book and this book. I think this is the only two books he's written. Seems like, you know, some really good stuff in here. Again, I did a video on, you know, on taking the bad with the good, essentially, like that you don't have to believe everything, or it doesn't have to necessarily be true for you to gain value from it. You should watch that video, because that's going to help you. Because even if you don't buy any of this, you might still get something out of books like this, because it will change your perspective. And even if, again, the underlying truth you have a disagreement with, of how the universe works and why, it doesn't mean that this process, or that this way of thinking, is totally untrue, that this can't be an effective model for life that you can utilize in certain situations. So anyway, like I said, weird book. That's why I'm giving you so many caveats. I know not a lot of people are going to be ready for this book or accepting this book. It's fine. If you don't like it, you just ignore it. Totally cool. Doesn't matter. You might not be ready for it, or it might not be for you. But I like the book. I thought it was good. I would recommend it. And it was a good read. So anyway, that's it. Again, if you like these videos, if you want me to do more book reviews and throw books on the floor, let me know, and I'll do some more. I'm always reading, so yeah. Anyway, if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.